creative people need distractions.
Mm-hmm.
They need to get out of their chair and walk around. They cannot stare at a problem.
Welcome to Brand Storytellers, where we talk about brands with the people who create their stories. If you like this episode, give us a comment. We'd love to hear from you, and also subscribe to our channel. Today, we're talking to Rich Wakefield, who is not only a great creative who's worked on great brands with companies like BBDO, but he's a natural mentor. And so today, Rich is going to share advice on how to create work that is sticky, in his words, or we can't get it out of our minds. Let's get started. If somebody asks you just what is creativity, how do you answer that?
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, I think that creativity could be anything. I mean, you see in today's world, the things that actually are sticky, or I don't think they're that creative, but to some people they really like it and they'll have like 100 followers following it. So when I think about creativity, I think about the things that I want to do and that I want to see. One thing about mixing this creativity and marketing thing, I feel like I'm a pretty good marketer because I was beat up a lot. And what I mean by that, I was born in a family where my dad is a military person and my mom is a music teacher. Those things don't kind of go together, right? And
Yeah.
my dad cannot carry a tune. And I asked my dad one time, like, what is his talent? He says, I can get people to do shit, which is why he's good at doing that. And maybe that's why I'm pretty good at what I do, because I can get people to do stuff and be a pretty good creative leader, but also have my mom's side about the music side about creativity, I guess. I moved around to a lot of different places and got a lot of different experiences. And what I mean by getting beat up, like for instance, I moved from Hawaii in 7th grade and I walked into a Virginia high school, which was like very preppy, and I'm wearing flip-flops, checkered pants, and a flowered shirt saying Shaka, and I got my ass beat because I didn't know how to talk, I didn't know how to dress and all that kind of stuff. So in marketing or advertising or creativity, you have to actually be contextually relevant into that market. So to me, creativity is something that where I might think something's funny, you might not think it's funny. Right. So I need to know who I'm talking to and be creative to that audience.
There's a general standard of what is excellent in our industry and what is not. How do you gauge that standard?
So I think creativity is also mashing up things and making it your own. You took our art class and you had these famous artists that would go and they would study the classic artists, but what they would do is they would mix those two things together to make it their own. Creativity to me is taking two things that might not go together and putting them together, forcing yourself to put them together and have somebody see it from a different light. I learned from a stand-up comedian, you don't give the audience two. You give the audience 1 + 1. Exactly. And the creative part of that is them actually creating the thing themselves in their mind. Like to me, radio is the most visual medium. Exactly. because it's in your mind. You can't sit at your desk and you can't just bite a pencil. I created this thing called the bouncing ball, and you can find it on thehappytriangle.com. I think I sent it to you.
Okay.
But Bart, there's a ball bouncing behind you. Don't turn around. How big is this ball? What's this ball made of? What color is this ball? Who's bouncing this ball? Is it a male, a female? Is it a bear? What are they wearing? How big are they? How far away is this ball being bounced? What surface are they bouncing this ball on? What are the possibilities? Infinite, right? But when you turn and look at that possibility, there's a brown bear with a pink tutu, bouncing a rubber ball that's about 4 inches in diameter with yellow stars on it on a parquet floor about 7 feet from you. Creative people need distractions.
Mm-hmm.
They need to get out of their chair and walk around. They cannot stare at a problem. You have to like get out and have that like subconscious thing work, because that ball is still bouncing behind you. And when you sit back down, there's some totally new, you know, solved problem or
Right.
idea. You know,
Right.
it's kind of that effect, when you're doing like a crossword puzzle with your grandma and you walk away and you come back in and you pick up a piece and put it right in.
I know exactly what you mean there. And it's like, how'd you do that? I've always said if the audience is not engaged, it's not creative.
I think you have to constantly not just engage, but also reward uh, your audience with something, and they'll keep coming back. That's why some of the best brands or some of the best, I guess, advertisements or campaigns or even art or whatever, it's because we want to share it with other people because we like it. You got to find clients that are willing to take that kind of step with you. And I think that
Yeah.
Pop Tart, but they lowered a mascot into a
Right.
toaster, and then when the
Right.
guy came out, it was a mascot, but it was Pop Tart. And the
Yeah.
and the and the winners ate the Pop Tart. It was kind of
Right.
crazy idea, but
Yeah.
will it be around in 5 years if I mention it? Maybe, but there are
Yeah.
things that, when I was ever at a bar and I was having a conversation or starting to break the ice, I might tell a joke. But what interests me is telling those kinds of stories, or
Yeah.
an etymology story about an origin of a word or where that came from. And like, so I try to find interest in lots of things, and then I do that connection thing where I take this
Right.
thing and that thing and put them together.
Right. So talk a little bit about that creative process. Like, what is it? Do you just use connectivity, or what other things might you recommend to people?
Well, I also think that you shouldn't be afraid to, oh, I don't like to be derivative, but it's like if you could take something and take it to another place, I think that's okay. I think so many creative people are saying, "Oh, that's been done before," but yeah, the Rolling Stones wouldn't be around without Muddy Waters. I mean, it's
Right.
like they took
Exactly.
it somewhere, right?
Right. Right.
And then there's an argument that Led Zeppelin stole, Stairway to Heaven,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter. I mean, they made it into something that was special, right? And so, you
Right.
have Picasso's famous saying is that good artists imitate, great artists steal.
Right.
And I think what he means by that is there are artists who had pretty good ideas, but they didn't know how to execute the ideas. So I think
Yeah.
creativity is not just about the idea, because an idea is not an idea until it's made. So
Right.
we all have ideas. And I think execution is a huge thing. And you and I have done this before, where we've art directed or designed the hell out of a bad idea. It's still a bad idea. It just looks nice,
So true.
right?
Exactly.
Or you have a good idea and you poorly art direct it.
Right.
It could kind of stick out. Those two things, execution and idea, has to come together. The writing and the art direction and the
Right.
design and all that kind of stuff has to come together perfectly.
Right.
I've always started the project without all the information. Give me the
Mm.
gist. Give me the gist of what the problem is. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So I work on the Peace Corps, and their business goal was to recruit 16,000 people, which is a really low number, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I would do is I would create a visual in my mind. Imagine there's 250 million people that are eligible to join the Peace Corps.
Mm.
If I'm going to wait on the strategist to come back with the strategy, they're only going to give me 3 days to come up with ideas. I need to start where they start. Our campaign, from my perspective, is how far will you go? The brief came in and said this is not a career move, it's a calling.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing was life is calling. How far will you go,
That's right. That's good.
right?
That's great. That's
So you're
excellent.
making this connection, and you're also starting the project without all the information.
And I think sometimes creativity, we get in the way of our ability to create.
I don't know who the audience is for this. It could be anybody that's in
Yeah.
the creative field.
Right.
We talk about students a lot. A lot of times, if you're an art student and you go to a class and you just begin to learn how to draw, you draw a really hard line.
Mm-hmm.
and you're trying to solve that problem in that one instance, right? But
Right.
if you really learn how to draw, they draw very lightly.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at like the Disney illustrators, they have like little like lines that you don't see because
Right.
later on they fill them in,
Yeah.
So
Right.
don't
Yeah.
be afraid to just throw stuff on the wall and then come back and look at it just like the ball bouncing. Is I would just put stuff on the wall even though it was a half idea. Then include people. I hated people, and I won't mention names, but there were some people that I work with that would close their door and they wouldn't let you see the work.
Yeah.
I think all of us own the work. They're
Yeah.
afraid to they want like some kind of like pat on the back for coming up with the idea, and I'm not like that at all. I just want to
Yeah.
do cool shit, and I don't care who's in the conversation. You can have
Well,
credit. I don't care.
yeah. Yeah. And I will say too that nobody comes up with an idea that's just theirs. So sometimes even I find even something that doesn't look like it has any potential at all has potential if you take the right attitude of approaching it.
Well, I mean, I think his name is David Carter at Fallon. He was given BMW films. Nobody wanted to work on it because it wasn't advertising,
Right.
and he took it to something. I mean, I think you hit on something also, Bart. Is that you can't be afraid. I think fear is a big problem with
Yeah.
people. Like right now, everybody's afraid that AI is going to take their job. Use it as a tool. Use it as a
Exactly.
tool.
How do you overcome the challenge of mediocrity that we're faced with, the obstacles that create mediocrity?
50% of the problem is the agency, and 50% of the problem is the client.
Oh yeah,
If you
absolutely.
have a really good relationship with the client, and this is what I posted. I don't know if you ever saw this. It was a Mr. Show skit. Like, could I have a change for $1? I don't know if you ever saw this.
No, I didn't.
All right, so a guy walks in, he wants change for $1. And the guy goes, let me think about it. Then he goes to his boss in the back, and the boss says, what's the problem? He goes, I got a customer out here that wants change for $1. He goes, I'm going to have to call regional. So he calls regional. And he goes, what do you want? He goes, the store 343 in Poughkeepsie or whatever. Guy wants change for $1. He goes, shit, I'm going to have to call the boss. The boss is on the golf course on vacation. And he goes, I told you not to bother me. And he goes, sir, we got a problem at one of the stores. He goes, what is it? He goes, guy wants change for $1. And he goes, man, it's too late to fly back. Okay, I'm going to have to call you back. He calls his friend. He calls his friend who's the president of the United States. He goes, hey, there, I need some advice. And he goes, what is it? I'm busy. He goes, guy wants change for $1. And the president immediately goes, tell him no. And it goes all the way back down. And the thing about it is there are all these middle people that only have the authority to say no. They don't have the authority to say yes.
Yep.
And a lot of times it's just a freaking ad.
Yeah.
They're afraid of their jobs because it's going to be out in public.
Right.
So my point in telling you that is that if you do a TV ad and they're going to spend a lot of money on it and it's going to go up the ladder and it might be mediocre, you could actually sell something that's completely not in that wheelhouse, and he won't get in trouble for a calendar,
Right.
right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I love
So
it.
so and a
Yeah.
calendar could be something really special. I mean, it could be
Yeah.
really cool. I mean, you've seen a lot of times like the Guinness, like there's some things like there was a Guinness like pint glass, but you couldn't read the QR code unless it had a Guinness in it because it's dark,
Right. Right.
right? So
Yeah.
that's brilliant. The TV ad might have been crap, but
Yeah.
the so the way
The
you
cut.
fight mediocre the way you fight mediocre is if you have an assignment is try to come up with something more than the assignment that you're working on. The other
Right.
thing is sometimes you have to take your clients step by step by step somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I did the AT&T hands campaign back in the day. I had a good group of people that worked there. My client, because the idea came from it's a handheld device, was in the brief, and
Mm-hmm.
we have this hand, so it was hands. I don't know if you've seen it.
I don't remember seeing it. I
They
probably
were
did.
like elephants that were painted hands, and it says
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was
it
great.
worked
That was
in
great.
every country,
Yeah.
including India.
Right.
My client says we can only show two hands because people only have two hands. And I'm like, no, wait. So I had to actually make 3 or 4 ads with two hands in them. And then they caught on that it's really art. So then we had
Yeah.
coral. with a fish. So it was like
Yeah.
you had multiple hands in it.
Right.
It became a piece of art. But
Yeah.
sometimes you have to take the client,
A
step
little
by
ways.
step to get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
They're
And
not going to
that's
jump,
yeah. And I think that, that's having the patience of the commitment to do great work is if I have to take them step by step with me and it takes me a little bit longer, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
and if you can get to that like respect and trust,
Hmm.
you can actually do the extreme.
That's absolutely right, and I think that goes internally too. I mean, you were talking about the agency being half at fault, and I think sometimes more than half at fault. If I talk to people about if you want to do great work, you've got to make sure that you've got a creative group around you. In other words, there's a dedication to creativity, and I'm not talking about just people in the creative quote unquote department. I'm talking about the attitude of excellence of being creative because we're in a creative business. It's supposed to be that way.
Hmm.
So when you're advising students or people that are wanting to maybe excel in this business, what kind of advice do you give them about identifying who to work with, how to find people you can trust?
Well, I mean, I think that so nowadays, I think that so I had a student that wanted to work at an agency, and I told him, don't work there because you'll never do any good work. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, people need to get a job. I would go out and look for the people. Like we started this conversation is about creativity, and creativity is about something that I like and
Mm-hmm.
stuff that I want to see. I'm going to only design a T-shirt that what I want to wear. I'm not going to design a T-shirt that's going to sell a lot.
Right.
Maybe because what I like, other people like, and it'll sell a lot. I think what you want to do is you want to identify the people that are doing the good work and try to get into those type of places,
Right.
or find people that I'm willing to talk to anybody to help you maybe make your portfolio better to get into those places.
Right. And
Um,
and I would say that that's a key piece of it is I tell people your book is never finished.
I also surround yourself with the people that have the same passion that you do.
Absolutely.
And don't lose those people over time. I
Right.
have friends that are 20-year friends that
Yeah.
I call up and they call me and they have something. And
Yeah.
also too, always have a side gig. I always have a
Right.
side gig that's helping people, whether it's a homeless, whether it was AIDS back in the day,
Right.
whether find something that you're passionate about and do that. I
Yeah.
mean, you never stop making spec work. Now, I
Right.
always make spec work because you never know. One day you might be able to sell that spec work.
Oh, you will. You will. I mean, the first piece that I received some accolation for, I wrote that ad, came up with that ad idea 3 years before, just as a spec assignment I gave myself. Yeah.
And repurpose stuff, even though that,
Yeah.
like I said earlier about don't be afraid to steal. Don't be afraid to steal from yourself. There's
Exactly. I
been
like that.
there. There's been. I had a group of people here in Philadelphia who we had a new business pitch. We worked all weekend. I wanted to cover the room with ideas. I wanted a lot of different looks and designs and stuff, and we didn't win the business. Those
Mm.
people went to my boss and said, "Look at all the time we wasted." And I'm like, "Are
Yeah.
you kidding me? You didn't waste any time because guess what? That thing on the wall right there that you said that you spent the weekend on, that's the ball still bouncing in your head that you can go make that connection 10 years from now.
Right.
When you need to pull something out of your ass in 2 days, people
Yeah.
think we're brilliant. We're not brilliant. We just had that idea 10 years ago,
That's right. We
you
have a
know,
big crate full of stuff that
in
nobody
here.
bought.
The other thing about creativity I was just thinking about is that, I'm most comfortable when I'm uncomfortable, meaning that
Yep.
uncomfortable could be doesn't have to be uncomfortable that I'm afraid, but uncomfortable where I'll take a job and I only have a day to come up with something. That makes me uncomfortable, right?
Right.
But I'm comfortable knowing that I'm going to get something,
Right.
and that fear, I guess that fear, that anvil hanging over your head drives you to do something. So I would say I had a couple of guys, and as being a responsible manager, they make you do reviews, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you review the creatives. I had a couple of really good creatives. I mean, they were really good. I partnered them up, but they were both quiet. Usually, usually in my past,
Yeah.
I was either the alpha or the beta, right?
Right.
It just
Right.
depended on who the person was that was
Right.
my partner. It's
Right.
like you can't have two Costellos. You have to have an Abbott and a Costello, right? Because two
Yeah.
straight men or two funny men, it doesn't
No,
work,
no, you got
right?
to have a straight guy and you got to have the funny guy. Yeah,
So these two
exactly.
guys, this little anecdote is these two guys. I said, look, you guys are really good, but if you're going to grow up in this business, you need to one, learn how to present. I mean, I'm actually helping you present your own work. I'm actually looking into the work that you're showing me, but you're going to have to go into an audience at one day, or if you want to grow up and be a creative director or anything like that, or present to clients and all that, you're going to have to come out of your shell. So both of these guys actually signed up for a stand-up class. And at
Wow.
the end of the stand-up comedian class, which is really uncomfortable, I've never done it before,
Yeah.
they had at the comedy club, that was their final assignment.
Mm-hmm.
They built their set. These guys were both really funny. And
Mm-hmm.
actually I don't know if it helped them too much because they were both quiet back in the agency, but that uncomfortableness though helped them learn just a little bit more. Look, you can't be that over there in one day.
Right.
You can't get back 21 points in one play. You
That's
have
right.
to get them one by one by one. So what I would say to young people is incrementally make yourself a better creative. Do something every day to make yourself just a little bit better, because by the end of it, all those things add up.
Right.
You
Right.
can't give up. I know I like to win. You like to win,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And that's what drives me is I don't want to be the most creative person and beat everybody in the room, even though
Right.
I do. Um, I just want to do something that I appreciate.
Exactly. And I realize that if if I'm not in the running to win, it's not like I have to win, but I want to be beat by something that I wish I had done.
What you're saying there is a great story. What you're saying there is pivoting. You got
Right.
to learn how to pivot with what's in
Right.
front of you. The famous, like, what was it, Apollo 13 movie where they
Oh
poured the
yeah.
stuff on the desk and they said this is what you have to work with. Or
Yep.
even if you see the Jaws documentary, guess what? The sharks
Yeah.
didn't work, and guess
Yeah.
what? The movie's better because the sharks didn't work,
Exactly.
and then the hero became the music.
Right.
So so you got to learn how to pivot for what's in front of you, and that's what I mean is like if you do the exercises and you do those aerobics every
Yeah.
day, you're going to have something where you go, you know what? I've seen this thing. What if we did that and that made that connection?
Yeah. Well, I know one thing that my dad used to say to me, all of us kids when we were little, that was ad nauseum, was can't, never could. And
Hmm.
that's the attitude when you're faced with a shark that doesn't work or a piano that's out of tune or whatever is, okay, I'm still going to do it. I
Hmm.
just have to figure out to do it without that.
Exactly. You don't have you don't have the budget.
Right.
So what are you going to do? You're going
Right.
to do all type?
Yeah.
What if there's no music? What if
Yeah.
it's silent? What if, I
Right.
mean, ask these questions like
Right.
that's kind of the fear thing that you were talking about. It's a
Right.
fear and pivot.
Right.
It's don't be fearful with just look at fear in the face
In
of
the
that
right.
and be uncomfortable because
Yeah.
the uncomfortable things are going to get you to better places.
I absolutely agree. So there's this adversity that we actually need when it comes to being storytellers, when it comes to us coming up with these ideas that are sticky. And I think one of the things that I would encourage people that are in our industry and people that are aspiring to be in our industry is to have such a passion for doing it that they can overlook all of the things that get bad mouthed about our industry. Because there's a lot of people that say, advertising is not worth being in anymore. And I'm going, yeah, it is. Compared to a lot of things that you might have to do for a living, there's still opportunity. And so, again, can't, never could. So,
And
like you
don't be
said,
afraid. Don't be
pivot.
afraid to fail. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid to fail. So
Yeah.
what?
So
You know how
what?
many bad things I've done in my life and I learned from them, and maybe
Yeah.
that bad thing I actually pull back up and
Yeah.
bring it and actually use it for something else, and it's actually better.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think keeping things in perspective is an excellent piece of advice. And all of this and I knew if we talked about these things that we'd find a lot of encouragement. Because one of the things that I've always admired about you and the work is because your attitude is based on a true passion to do something wonderful, to look at it half full, not half empty.
I would leave you with this.
Yeah.
I think also be patient, and so
Mm-hmm.
and don't be afraid of the haters, because they if you know where you're going, even if you don't know where you're going with the
Yeah.
idea, your first ad might not be the best. I remember when Geico came out, and Jim Noble would call his brother John Noble at the
Martin
at the Martin
Agency.
Agency every
Mm-hmm.
day, and he would say, "I said gecko, not Geico. I said Geico, not gecko," and he would hang up because he thought it was the stupidest thing he'd ever heard of. Right? But eventually, over time, it becomes a classic. Right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I
It
mean,
took
and
on a
then the Martin
life of its
Agency.
own.
And if you think about their campaigns, some of their campaigns, the first ad you saw was like, "That's stupid." But then
Yeah,
over time,
yeah.
because they were patient with it, they got better and better and better, and they became classics.
I don't know about you, but listening to Rich, it just makes me want to go out and do something more creative. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a like and a comment. We'd love to hear from you, and subscribe to our channel so that you can see more brand storytelling. We'll see you soon. Thank you.